Hey guys, what's up? It is week 396. Before we hop into this, you guys, if you're listening to the audio version or the Spotify version, which is a video as well, you'll realize that Bramayugam is in both videos. That's because when I posted it for YouTube, it got taken down for a copyright. I edited it to get it out of there. Kind of screwed up the algorithm, so 395 kind of didn't do as well. So, you know, that review kind of screwed it up, but it's going to be in this one. Just that's why I'm not dressed the same, or maybe I don't have the same energy. Regardless, it's going to be in this one for the video for YouTube and probably the audio and all that kind of stuff. So let's hop into the reviews. First and foremost, we have from Arrow Video the 4K of Demolition Man from 1993, starring legends Sylvester Stallone and Wesley Snipes. It also has Sandra Bullock in here, Bob Gunton, Rob Schneider, Glenn Shadix. Who else is pops? Jesse Ventura has a small little role. A lot of little small Benjamin Pratt. So it's kind of an amazing cast, although all of them weren't pretty big stars at the time. Some of them went on to be bigger stars, of course. Stallone is a freaking icon, action star. And Snipes was pretty big at the time, too. He had his little action run, and he had his kind of villain run with, like, New Jack City and stuff like that. And then he was in stuff like King of New York and Passenger 57, Drop Zone. Had a nice little action thing here. So Demolition Man is definitely kind of almost, I don't want to call it necessarily a parody. It's definitely a satire. So basically in Los Angeles, crime has gotten so out of control, and Stallone, Spartan, the police officer Spartan, is going against this super criminal who's basically shut down a whole section of town that he owns, he runs, and whatnot. He's hijacked a bus, and he has all the people in his big kind of building compound under hostage and everything like that. Spartan's not supposed to go in there. He goes in there by himself and cleans house. What happens is, you know, he catches Snipes, who is Simon. Simon, I can't think of his last name, but he always has his catchphrase, Simon says, and he's completely unhinged in this movie. Great performance by Wesley Snipes. A lot of later roles in action films. You see him kind of toned down, the kind of action, but when he plays this kind of character, he's a lot of fun. So basically, Stallone captures him, but in the whole process, the building blows up and a bunch of hostages are killed. So this takes place in kind of where there's a futuristic kind of prison. Essentially, if anybody's ever seen Hologram Man, but why would you have seen Hologram Man and not Demolition Man? You guys sound like me, but that's the kind of stuff that would happen. This one was one that I seen a bunch as a kid and always enjoyed. So what happens is they are both frozen, cryogenically frozen, and they basically are frozen in this, and they'll be unthawed in like 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, to go through kind of I guess you're thinking like they're frozen and they get put out and they get on parole and have their conversation and everything like that. So what happens is they take, it's now the future LA, and it's super, basically it's a fascist state. Everything bad for you is outlawed. You can't do anything. You can't even cuss without getting a ticket. There's a lot of great jokes in that kind of deal. I should mention Dennis Leary's also in here, and he's kind of the leader of this underground movement, similar to Delicatessen, if anybody's ever seen that film, where he kind of is, or even, what's the one, Brazil, in this kind of not apocalyptic, but fascist society, totalitarian society, where you can't do anything bad. He's the underground guy who's kind of doing all these things and everything like that. So essentially what happens is Simon gets out. He seems to have been programmed with a bunch of stuff while he was frozen, and he knows a lot of information. He is a master criminal, and all the cops are not well prepared for this kind of deal. A lot of humor ensues. So they unthaw Spartan, Stallone, to take care of it. So what happens is we have this kind of crazy, like, people from blast from the past with their kind of crazy, over-the-top antics and law enforcement, and then we have all these PC kind of police that refuse to do anything crazy or anything like that, and they're not used to violence or language, and they just don't understand why people do not comply. So it adds for a lot of comedy, a lot of satire. There's a great joke in here about Taco Bell. If you watch the international version, it's Pizza Hut. Really fun joke. A lot of great dialogue. The action is pretty much nonstop. The movie's pacing is fantastic. The sets are fantastic. The dialogue is priceless. Stallone has some really good humorous moments at his own expense, of course, where he, at one point, he realizes he's been programmed to knit while he was cryogenically frozen, and he's hurt and he's walking through, and Sandra Bullock's like, "Oh, your outfit's torn." He's like, "No, it won't take longer, just a couple little stitches here and there," and like he registers that he's been programmed. Like his face gets angry that he was like so. He's like this, like it's just a subtle little thing that and it's just a really good moment. I'm a huge Stallone fan, a huge Arnold fan, grew up with all those action guys, and he's great in this. This is a really fun, self-aware, kind of satirical movie that Stallone doesn't take himself overly serious, or at the very least knows that he is a punchline to many of these jokes. Sandra Bullock is great in here. She's obsessed with the 90s and everything like that, so she has her nostalgia, as maybe we would be at this time, and everything like that. Plays really well with Stallone. Snipes is fantastic as the villain, and he's got all the best one-liners, high energy, just beating the shit out of everyone. Just great. And him and Stallone's back and forth is also great. Bob Gutton is kind of the police chief, is really funny in here. Of course, from Shawshank Redemption and Broken Arrow and a million other movies. Very good actor. There's a bunch of other people in here. Rob Schneider is in here, of course, and it's funny because he was in Judge Dredd with Stallone as well as the comic relief, a bigger part in that. And Judge Dredd was another kind of 90s kind of sci-fi action movie that Stallone was in, which didn't do as well as this one, I would say. Probably it's probably not as well reviewed at the time, even though I do like Judge Dredd. I think Judge Dredd has its moments, has its fun to it and everything like that, and of course it was made into another movie later on. That's probably arguably a better film, but besides that, I really like this film. I think it's fantastically entertaining, and you watch it and you see like 90s action is just not, it's not like action nowadays. There's explosions, there's danger. Maybe they shouldn't make movies like this anymore, but hell, man, watching the old ones, it's just really great. And this movie was pretty average at the time, I think. Most people looked at it as an average, fun movie, nothing spectacular, but when you look back on it, I always was fond of it, and I think it's fantastic as ever. Actually aged really well. A lot of good jokes, a fantastic cast, and there's a lot of jokes at this time. You know, Arnold and Stallone would sometimes like not like make fun of each other, but little pokes at each other. You know, there's a mention of Arnold Schwarzenegger being president, and then Last Action Hero, you know, Stallone filled the shoes of the Terminator. So there's little jokes like that back and forth. Really fun stuff. As far as the special features are concerned, we got a nice little deluxe edition. It folds out really nice. You'll see it in the video here. We have brand new 4K restoration, 35mm camera negative by Arrow Films, approved by director Marco Brambilla. Includes both domestic Taco Bell and international Pizza Hut versions of the film. Take that out of context, sounds absolutely hilarious. Presented via seamless branching, 4K HD, presented in Dolby Vision HDR10 compatible, original lossless DTS HD 5-point sound. And Dolby Atmos audio options, fantastic. Optional English subtitles, of course. Brand new commentary by the director and screenwriter, Daniel Waters, who wrote stuff like Hudson Hawk and Heathers. Great writer, a very funny guy. Brand new audio commentary by film historian Mike White on Projection Booth Podcast. Great podcast. Archival audio commentary by the director and producer Joel Silver. Madman Joel Silver. Demolition Design, a new interview with production designer David L. Snyder. Cryo Action, a new interview with stunt coordinator Charles Persini. These are fun because Persini especially has he knows Stallone, and he had a little buddy, kind of met him when he was early on in his career, so it's very short, but it's very interesting to see. And then we have Biggs Body Shop, a new interview with special makeups effects artist Chris Biggs. Tacos and Hockey Pucks, a new interview with body effects stunt coordinator Jeff Farley. They even talk about making fake boobs for Sandra Bullock in this, which I didn't even notice in the film. Somewhere over the Rambo, a new visual essay by film scholar Josh Nelson, and that's pretty great, talking about Stallone's career, trying to advance and having duds and trying to reinvent himself and all that kind of stuff like that. Well, Arnold had like success with the sci-fi action. Stallone was trying to do his own thing and everything like that. And Stallone's always had a up and down career, but I think I'm a huge Arnold fan, don't get me wrong, but I think Stallone's career has lasted longer, and I think that it's probably overall a better career than Arnold Schwarzenegger's in terms of film. I mean, Arnold was a fucking governor too, so besides that, but yeah, so, and we also have 60-page perfect bound collector's booklet featuring writings by film critics Glenn Barstow, William Bibini, Priscilla Page, and Martine Peddler. Limited edition packaging featuring newly commissioned artwork by Laurie Greasley. Double-sided fold-out poster featuring original newly commissioned artwork by Laura Greasley. 6 postcard-sized art cards, 3 seashells, and Edgar-friendly graffiti stickers. The 3 seashells is a classic joke. And reversible and original newly commissioned artwork. This is a great release, great movie. 4K looks fantastic, looks beautiful. There's also a Blu-ray edition of it. Recommend you pick up Demolition Man if you haven't seen it in a long time. If you have any fondness in your heart for Stallone or Demolition Man, pick it up. I think you'll really enjoy it. Okay, next up is the next disc in the Shawscope Volume 3. First up, we're going to do Lady Hermit. This is disc 3, I think we're on here. So, yep, this is a great set. Like I said, I've showed it numerous times now. So, yeah, anyways, we have the nice booklet here. So, let's get into Lady Hermit 1971. First time watch for me. So, yeah. Anyways, this one is pretty cool. I mean, as far as, like, storylines go, we have, like, a leading female here, which Shaw was kind of cool about. You know, they had a lot of leading female action stars in their films, and this one kind of is a three-hander. So what we have here is kind of a ruler that's bad, that nobody likes, the black demon kind of guy. And he's going around and he's been kind of like torturing this village and having his goons and everything go around. You know, the typical kind of villain in a Shaw Brothers movie. And what happens is we have this one lady who stands up to them. And there's like an ancient kind of like old like fighter, the Lady Hermit, that's stood up to him and had a great combat with him. And she got injured in the process. And she's been hiding out as like a cook. So nobody really knows it's her. One day she kind of unveils herself a little bit when she helps this other woman who stands up to the bullies and whatnot. So she eventually learns that this kind of secret cook is like this master kung fu artist and wants to learn from her. At the same time, there's another guy who works at the kind of place and knows her very well, and he also wants to learn from her. And this starts some weird, strange love triangle where they both have not infatuation, but feelings for this man. And at times, the master here, the Lady Hermit, starts teaching the new pupil her stuff, and she's going to teach this guy stuff. And things get really complicated eventually when she feels betrayed in the love affair and everything like that. And she decides to take kind of justice in her own hands and force the hand of the Lady Hermit to do her final battle. There's some really fun battles in here, some really great set pieces. I like the kind of love triangle. It works well. And there's a lot of jumping and landing is kind of like the style of the characters in this one. So like the martial artist is like doing the flips and landing and stuff like that. There's also like, I believe like a whip kind of combat in here, which I thought was nice. But this one is overall really solid martial arts movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Like the characters, like the dynamic. And I was really hoping the Lady Hermit would pull through and not end up, dead, because these movies, you never really know. Shaw Brothers are willing to go there for sure. As far as the special features are concerned, we have brand new 2K restoration, and we have brand new commentary by James Mudge, and yeah, so there we go, an alternate English, that's for the other film. But yeah, this one's pretty good. The bad guy's solid. There's a lot of goons in here. There's tons of goons, tons of bad guys, and there's a giant fight scene that I'll get into at the very end, which I thought was one of the coolest, because our characters, like, there's kind of like these goons that are everywhere. And then there's kind of like higher ups that wear these kind of shirts, and there's a couple major goons. A couple of them get killed and fight in this great like tea like setting. There's always these like outdoor like diners in the Shaw Brothers movies and stuff where people are like roadside kind of diners. I guess it's a modern day equivalent if they even have those now. But there's a pretty elaborate fight scene where she literally scales this tower, going up each floor, beating the shit out of guys with the whip and stuff. And that's just a great fight scene. Overall, Lady Hermit is good. I think you know what? I haven't rated anything in this set lower than a 3.5, but I put this closer to a 4 out of 5. I loved it quite a bit. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, the next one here is from 1972, and this is Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan. And I love this movie. This is your classic Revenger. So what we have here is another female-led film. And I love the shit out of this. So what we have is a prostitution racket, and they basically kidnap women who are virgins and force them into prostitution. Really ugly opening, really ugly open scene, a concept for a movie, right? But it's the 70s. That's pretty much what a lot of people are seeing, and the Shaw Brothers are getting more extreme. And by the 80s, their horror movies would be bonkers as shit when you look at stuff like Seeing the Ghost and a lot of those Hell Has No Boundaries. They're pretty ballsy, pretty crazy stuff. So this one is in line with kind of an exploitation film for sure. So our lead here is a fairly innocent woman. I think she was a school teacher, actually. And the person who runs this brothel is this demented woman. And she's infatuated. She's a lesbian. She's in love with this woman. But she wants to obviously take her and turn her into a prostitute. And she offers this woman up to like the 4 biggest paying customers that come to her brothel. All old men, all gross. One is younger, but they're just gross, seedy people. And they're like betting on her how much money, kind of under the table deal thing they're going to do. And the opening, she's basically raped by all of them, and they do it in a different. They don't show every detail, but they do that. And as she moves on, we kind of learn that she really fought hard, tooth and nail, and everything, and she kind of befriends one of the helpers, and at one point something really tragic happens that makes her even more angry at the situation, and she's destined for revenge. In the very opening of the film, we learn that somebody had been murdered, possibly, and all signs point to her, and then we kind of get back to that scene, and we realize that's the first murder. And what our character here is, she doesn't really hide that she's doing the killing at all, but she kind of has these little loopholes that she could slide through, and the cop is a cop that's newer, and he wants to do the right thing, and she's protected because basically the leader of this brothel, the person who runs this brothel, has connections, political, and all these rich people and stuff, and all the rich old men, even though that they possibly could die, they're still infatuated with her. They don't believe that a woman could ever do that because they have their own stupid egos, and they're not very intelligent. But as it progresses, she picks all this revenge here and there and gets them all in different kind of ways, clever, fun ways, and there is this lesbian relationship between these two, and she's constantly not worried about what's going to happen to her, but her kind of right hand man that runs the brothel is a little concerned. And at the end of the movie, we have an all out battle. We have betrayal and backstabbings, and it's an amazing ending. It's a great ending. It turns into, like, we have a revenge film that's really great, pick 'em off kind of deal in elaborate kind of fun ways. And the very end turns into an all-out action movie, and the ending is great, tragic, amazing. Just a perfect movie, something I absolutely love. I wish I would have watched this a long time ago. One of my favorite Shaw Brothers movies I've ever seen. Probably behind Five Deadly Venoms, but it's top tier. I love a lot of the horror movies too. Sometimes I separate the horror movies, like Human Lantern's is fucking excellent. But I really love this one. Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan. How do you say that? Courtesan, like kind of prostitute kind of deal. So as far as the special features, we have two commentaries on here. We have Tony Reyes and Sam Deegan. Sam Deegan does a lot of stuff like, does a lot of exploitation movie and foreign cinema. So she talks about, Shaw Brothers stepping up their kind of exploitation stuff and talking a lot about the character. And Tony Reyes is kind of an expert on the films of the time and the Shaw Brothers expert and all that stuff. So yeah, we have alternate English export credits for Intimate Confessions of a Chinese Courtesan and theatrical trailers for both films. I love this fucking movie. This one is worth the set already. So, by far, great set so far. Yeah, good stuff. Check it out. Alright, next up is The Last Video Store, and not to be confused with the documentary that came out last year as well. This technically is 2023, but I think it would count as 2024 as a wide release. This is also Arrow Video. Not heard much about this one. It's kind of a shame. I thought this was a really fun movie. This is directed by a pair of directors, Cody Kennedy and Tim Rutherford, which had a YouTube channel as well. So, and they also had a short version of this, which I don't think was completed, which is on the disc. So this is The Last Video Store. So what we have here is definitely, analog horror. We have a lot of analog kind of horror in the last couple years and everything like that, as it's something that's popping out, like Mr. Crockett from this year, or I saw the TV Glow from this year. Hell, VHS in general will be considered analog horror, and that job series goes back 10 years now, 10 years plus. So analog horror, but it's pretty big this year. All around this last couple of years, and I can understand why. So, The Last Video Store. This is obviously a love letter to people that love VHS, that collected VHS, that grew up in video stores, that have that love letter to, that's kind of their important thing, and it's kind of a dying thing, and they kind of feel like outcasts even more now, and all that kind of stuff like this. So, essentially what happens is this young girl in her probably early 20s or so ends up finding these VHS tapes that her father, who's passed away, hasn't returned. She goes to this video store that's kind of a hole in the wall kind of alleyway back thing, and she goes in there, and it's just this kind of like nerdy kind of middle-aged guy in there running the video store, and he's super excited that he has a customer, and he asks about James or whatever and all this kind of stuff like that. And he talks about all the tapes that she brings back, and he's super ecstatic about it and all this kind of stuff like that. And there's like a sci-fi action movie, there's kind of a Friday the 13th style movie, and then there's there's a weird kind of time warp sci-fi movie and all that kind of stuff like this. So she also brings up a tape called the Video Necronomicon or something along those. Video Necronomicon. I can't say what I mean. It's the Necronomicon, but it's a videotape, right? Yeah, the tape of the dead, if you will. And her father had that, and he's like, I've never seen a tape like that. So essentially what they do is they put it in the VCR, and all hell breaks loose. The tapes that are being rewound in there come to life, and we have this bad CGI coming out on the screen, which works really well. The practical effects are really solid. The bad CGI is purposely done so, but that's fun, and these two have to team up and form this friendship amongst each other, this kind of, bond where they really have nothing in common except that, her father used to rent tapes from here, and they fight off all these kind of things. And at one point, the Jason Voorhees style character, he's like a hockey multiplayer. He's really fun, and they kind of dog on some of the later Friday 13th and all this kind of stuff like that. But the lead guy actually did run a video store, and he does a pretty good job kind of playing kind of probably exaggerated version of himself. The other performance from the lead female in here is also really good. I don't know the actresses' names or actor's name. That's bad on my part, but I thought they did a good job. I thought they formed a nice bond, and I thought this movie was just a good nostalgia kind of heartwarming thing for video geeks, for cinephiles, and all that kind of stuff like that. Sometimes people are probably getting burnt out on a lot of that, but I thought this one did it well enough, and I really enjoyed it. So things get really complicated when we kind of introduce this crazy Chuck Norris style Steven Seagal character who gets a little meta at times because they pull him in there to kind of do all these other things to help them fight the Jason character, and that's where things start to get really weird and crazy. We'll recognize a couple people from Astron 6 like Matthew Kennedy and Adam Brooks have roles in here, which is nice. Astron 6 of course did stuff like Father's Day and Manborg and Psycho Gorman and this year's Frankie Freakout. So they pop up in here. It's cute, but most of all, there's really only like 3 or 4 kind of cast members. The end is really touching, really fun. You get what they're preaching to the choir when they say here, but the last video store was an entertaining kind of horror comedy deal, dramatic kind of love spoof thing. I wouldn't call it really a spoof. I mean, the characters in the videotapes are spoofing kind of things like that, but the film itself isn't. As far as special features are concerned, we have, of course, 5.1 and 2 audio, optional subtitles, new audio commentary by film critics Matt Donato and Megan Navarro. The video, Necronomicon Unleashed, a new visual essay by film critic Heather Wixon, co-author of Search of Darkness. She also pops up a lot on what's the podcast that I really like to listen to? It's, why am I blanking out? F This Movie. She's on there a lot. She talks a lot with the host on there, and that's really fun. She does a really good job kind of doing this breakdown on nostalgia and all that kind of stuff like that. And then we have also another Nostalgia Fuel, a new video essay by film critic Martin Pedler. Both of these kind of tread some of the same things, and they're kind of mixing in my head. I remember both enjoying both of them. Regardless, they're both interesting enough, and they kind of hit the nail on the head what the movie's trying to do. 'Twas the Night of the Tree Beast, a 2012 short by Cody Kennedy and Tim Rutherford. M is for Magnetic Tape. Another short, The Last Video Store, the original short, and the Video Store Commercial, 2019 short film by Cody Kennedy and Tim Rutherford. Clips from the first attempted feature version. That's what happened. And behind the scenes, previous shorts, and 3x3 trailer, image gallery, illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writings by film critics Anton Bittel and Alexandra West, reversible sleeve featuring newly commissioned artwork by John Pearson, double-sided fold-out poster featuring newly commissioned artwork by John Pearson. Anyways, kind of a sleeper movie that not many people are talking about. I would recommend it, really I would. Maybe it's on the Arrow streaming channel, maybe you want the Blu-ray, but fun movie. I think that video store fans will get a kick out of it. Okay, next up here is Kirsten Baja from Anchor Bay, and I have not seen Anchor Bay in a long time. I know they're still around. They weren't putting out too many horror movies, but now they're putting out a couple modern horror movies. This is Kirsten Baja, directed by Jeff Daniel Phillips. Of course, people recognize Jeff Daniel Phillips for popping up in a couple of the Rob Zombie movies, like 3 from Hell and Lords of Salem, and a couple other ones I'm sure of it. But he's a pretty solid actor. He directed this. He stars in this. And this is a low-budget kind of movie. So what we have here is there's a couple other actors in here, too. I feel like I'm missing some of them. I feel like there's another big name in here that just kind of sticks out to me that I feel like I'm forgetting. But regardless, I'm not seeing it. Barbara Crampton. There we go. I knew there was somebody in here. Sorry about that. She just has a tiny little role. Pretty decent in here. But yeah, so this movie's kind of strange. Jeff Daniel Phillips has just got released from prison a while ago. There's been some time. There's kind of time lapses. He works as a janitor. And he has a sixth sense, a special gift kind of for tracking people. He was a bounty hunter. And some really nasty shit happened and tragic stuff where he lost somebody he loved, and he's all messed up from it, betrayal, all these kind of things like that. But this family calls to him, this rich family, and the lawyer in here is really great, the guy who calls him in, and the old man's a good actor too, who calls him in here. He's dying. He says, I just want you to find my grandson and figure out what happened to him. We need closure in this time, and he decides to do it. So he ends up driving all the way to Baja, and he starts to dig deep under what's going on, and it's almost like a film noir style thing with the Sixth Sense also, but things get crazier and weirder and wilder, and we realize there's this like lonesome road where there's a possible monster that popped out, where the drug money and all this kind of shit and weird stuff's going on. And by the end of it, it's pretty bonkers, pretty weird. Overall, I didn't love this movie. I thought that some of the acting, some of the characters were a little shaky. I thought Jeff Daniel Phillips was good. I thought the lawyer was good. I thought the old man was good. But some of the other kind of players in here aren't really spectacular. And I thought some of the special effects were a little ropey. And editing towards the end of the film, it feels like this movie was done really quick, and it's ambitious, and I can appreciate some of it. But overall, for the most part, I didn't really hold my interest as long as I thought it would. But it's interesting enough, I guess you'd say. The location is cool. I don't want to spoil it necessarily, but I think anybody looking around or kind of guessing what the hell is going on here. But you kind of might figure it out. It really doesn't get into it, and I don't want to spoil it, but there is some sort of like more horror aspect to it. And there's a lot of zany, weird characters in here. You could kind of guess it, like it would be a little bit, like a Rob Zombie kind of influence in here. Overall, the movie just was okay for me. I didn't think it was horrible, but it just really didn't land as much as I thought it would. At first, I was digging it, but it doesn't come together fully for me. As far as special features are concerned, we have Courtesan Baja, the making of which is feature length, 70 minutes or so, and this is a relatively short movie, so don't feel like you're gonna waste all day watching it and disliking it. So you can give it a shot, and you might like it a lot more than me. Commentary with writer, director, lead actor Jeff Daniel Phillips, and this isn't his first film. I guess he directed another film quite some time ago, but yeah, check it out. A lot of weird, zany characters, kind of crime, horror-oriented film. Yeah, but that is Courtesan Baja from 2024. Okay, the next one is also from Anchor Bay, and this is Abruptio. And this is a wild, weird movie, totally up my alley, just kind of the films that they would make, and decided to make the whole movie puppets. Yeah, that's what we go. We have voice talent acting for Robert Englund and, of course, Sid Haig. But Abruptio, technically last year, counts wide release this year. Anchor Bay again. Oh, boy, I don't even know how to go about this. What we have here is a 35-year-old guy. He's kind of lives with his parents. His girlfriend just broke up with him. He's just kind of an overall just lost in life kind of person. He hangs out with his best buddy. He's an alcoholic. He goes to Alcoholics Anonymous. He tries to stop drinking, but he's obviously having trouble with it. And then one day, his buddy says, listen, after his girlfriend broke up, and he says, listen, man, something's wrong with me. I don't know what happened, but they both have these stitches up the back of their neck, and they realize that somebody's implanted a bomb, and they're getting texts that make them carry out these acts, which, is a movie where they basically, where the Bob stuff reminds me of like Running Man or anything like that, or Wedlock, and if you separate, your head explodes and whatnot, or Battle Royale does that too, kind of in a similar vein. But they do have those movies where they say, do this or I'll kill your family, and they have the character running around having to do all these crazy acts and stuff, and that's kind of in that vein. But this is weird because, of course, it's all puppets, and what they do is they make this uncanny, it's like an uncanny valley kind of feel to it, right? You feel like you're in reality at times, and then you see the puppets, how they move, and their facial expressions. But at first, I'm not going to lie, this is like an hour and a half, and I was like, I'm like, this is going to be cool for 20-30 minutes, and that's how I kind of felt about Wolf House, which everyone loved, and I don't hate that movie. I think it's a cool idea, tons of hard work, kind of interesting concept, but I got tired of Wolf House. This one I was like, I'm going to get tired as well. It's not going to be like Meet the Feebles or Puppet Monster Massacre or something like that. I'm going to get burnt out on it, but I didn't. I was fully intrigued in the story. It's a great story, great characters, good one-liners, all sorts of nonsense and violence and weird shit going on, but as the film progresses, it gets weirder and weirder, and he's asked to do crazier and crazier things. And the whole world is falling apart around him. There's terrorist acts happening everywhere. People are losing their fucking minds. He meets, women, and he's like, I'm following all these rules, and I'm getting rewarded for things that I was afraid to go after in life. There's just a lot of fun lines, and you end up really liking the character, although he's not a perfect character because he's doing a lot of gray, horrible, violent, terrible shit. But it gets more of a horror sci-fi bend, which I don't want to necessarily spoil. It's almost out of the world of Phantasm in a way. But overall, this is really good. It's really darkly comedic. It's really twisted. I think that it's well acted and voice talent. Sid Haig's got some funny lines. Robert Englund's guy's got some funny lines. But I really like this. I think this is unique. I think it's different. I've seen a lot of the same movies all the fucking time, and this ain't it. It's Abruptio, all puppet cast, and at the very end there's a little tinge of humanity, if you will. The ending I'm a little iffy on. A lot of people probably like it because of the ending. I don't know if I like it despite of the ending or not. I don't hate the ending. It's just you're always wondering where something like this is going to go, and they can give you kind of like, will they give you what you want, or will they get, I don't know if they can give you what you exactly want. They can leave you kind of like, hey, there's no real answer to it, or they can just kind of come forth and do something like this. Overall, I thought it was a great movie, very entertaining, very ambitious, very cool. As far as the special features are concerned, we have New Kind of Horror interview with performers and filmmakers. That's relatively short. And then we have audio commentary by Evan Marlowe, the director and writer, and producer Carrie Marlowe. And then we have audio commentary track with puppeteer Danny Montooth. So yeah, this is an entertaining ass movie. Jordan Peele is also in here. James Marsden, Christopher McDonald. He's the cop in here. He's really funny. Hannah Mae Lee and Robert Englund. So yeah, and there's crazy little puppets down there. Entertaining movie. Great stuff. Would recommend. I think that if you like weird, wild cinema, Abruptio is for you. Okay, we got a bunch of 2024 movies. I'm going to be very brief with a lot of these. So first up is Wicked. Listen, I love The Wizard of Oz. I like Return to Oz. I've heard this musical before, just playing it around, people playing it and stuff like that. And I don't hate it. Some of the songs are very popular. This isn't necessarily a movie I go to, but I don't, I'm not prejudiced against any movie, right? I don't have, I don't think that's the proper term I'd use, but, I don't have any ups and downs. I'll watch anything. I wasn't really thrilled to go see this in theaters because it's 2 hours and 40 minutes, and there's a bunch of people that are familiar with the musical really a lot, and I was like, I don't know if I'll like it, and based off, I think, a book as well, which is not canon in the Wizard of Oz stories, because I think there's 7 or 8 books of that. So anyways, this follows the Wicked Witch of the West, kind of a prequel in a deal, and the Glenda the Good Witch. So it follows them. This is the first part of 2, of course. Everything has to be separated into 2 because they want that money, money, money. Think of that last Harry Potter's, even the low budget guys do it now with Return to Nukem Part 1 and 2, all that kind of shit like that, right? It's the way it is, right? Let's break it up in 3 or 4 parts, hence why television series get drawn the fuck out all the time. But that doesn't really hurt this movie, I don't think, as far as I can tell. And first and foremost, I enjoyed it. So I'm not an expert on this kind of stuff, but I talk about a lot of shit I'm not an expert on. Hey, I'm just a guy talking about movies. It's fun. But Wicked. So yeah, this is Ariel Grande, and I'm not too familiar with either of the main actors or cast in this film. They're not people besides Jeff Goldblum pops up in here that I'm super familiar with. And I'm probably forgetting 1 or 2 actors that I do know really well. But yeah, so we first and foremost have her backstory. In the beginning, we realize she's dead. She's been killed. And the Good Witch is all these people are asking her questions, and she starts answering, and then she goes back, and we have the big flashback and everything like that. And we learn that, maybe, the perception of her was wrong. Maybe it's a little different than we all think. So saying that, what I find interesting, and if you look back at old films, a lot of the people that were good looking or mainstream appeal to people were kind of the heroes or the main characters of stories. Besides film noir, but those characters never really ended well. It was tragic for them, and I think that's what stood out to people, right? These kind of tragic characters that aren't, the clean-cut everyday people or clean-hearted people that are portrayed in a lot of cinema. And I mean, cinema's always had, stuff like that. But I think in society, as we look back and rewrite and change the history of these things through movies, we kind of look at other people in different lights. And I think that's what everybody's doing. They want to relate to different characters, because a lot of the people that are watching film, are obsessed with film, aren't really, the people that are the ones that are, the super clean cut, happy-go-lucky people. I think people that watch cinema now that are obsessed with it because it's not as popular as it once was. I know a lot of people see the big movies, but the people writing these characters and making these characters definitely are relating more to the underdogs or the villains or characters that aren't necessarily, the clean-cut persons like Glenda, the Good Witch. But this movie's definitely playing on that a lot. The story is, too, how she seems super happy and stuff, but it's a lot of superficial people. The people that go with the grain, that just go with whatever the easy flow, are more rewarded in society than the people that stand up against all the, atrocities, no matter how small they are. Those people aren't always the easiest people to get along with or be around, because they don't always go with the flow of things, and it can disrupt, society. And that's something that this movie's talking about, even if they are right, even if they stand by their guns. Sometimes it doesn't work out for you, right? Cool Hand Luke is one of them, right? He's a character that just saw bullshit in society and decided to do what he wanted, and it doesn't end well for Cool Hand Luke. It doesn't end well for those characters, but in reality, they're turning the Wicked Witch of the West into one of those characters, a sympathetic, likable kind of character in a weird way. And the songs, the music is good. The pacing is a little off. It's a little too long, to be honest, but overall, I enjoyed it. Jeff Goldblum's great. He's great at playing the wizard, as you would expect, honestly. Michelle Yeoh was also in here, another big star there. But overall, you sometimes see something from a distance and you think you want that, but then when you get that, you realize it's goes against everything that your core beliefs are. Wicked, good film. Not typically something that I would review on here, but hey, this ain't a typical show. Anything goes. From porn to musicals to kids' movies to X-rated gore fests that are banned in all the countries except this one, right? Why not? All right, so this next one here is Destroy All Neighbors, starring Alex Winters, kind of big star in here. We also have Thomas Lennon from Reno 911. There's a couple other familiar faces that pop up in this movie. Yeah, and this one is on Shudder. And at first, I tried to watch this early in the year, and I was just in a bad mood. I was like, I don't like it. And then I was looking at the reviews and stuff after I watched it, and I did really enjoy this movie. And people are really kind of... they either really like it or they don't. There's not much middle ground here. So Destroy All Neighbors is a zany, weird... comedy movie about kind of a nerdy, pushed over guy who wants to follow his dreams, but everybody's against him because, he's in his own head and he's just kind of a pushover and all that kind of stuff like that. So he lives in a shitty apartment, and the new neighbor is this crazy Russian guy that moves in that is in a bunch of prosthetics. He looks like a Dick Tracy character. I don't know what the hell's going on. Played by Alex Winter, over the top character, and he starts moving in, making a lot of noise. This guy's a song engineer. He wants to compose his album. That's all he talks about, but his day job's getting in his way. Thomas Lennon's his boss. There's a musical artist that comes in. He's a complete dickhead. Everybody's a dickhead to him. The homeless guy yells at him, and he knows the homeless guy's name, but the homeless guy doesn't know who he is. He calls him the Courtesan guy. That's this guy's total level of lowness. It kind of reminds me in a weird way of The Vagrant with Bill Paxton and Michael Ironside and Marshall Bell in a little weird way, but that movie I think is just a little bit more subtle, and it's a better film, but this is pretty good. So basically, this guy meets all these weird, zany characters throughout his life, and he basically just snaps. He goes over there, and through a series of errors, he accidentally kills this guy. This guy gets killed, manslaughter, and he thinks it's all over, and he's trying to get rid of the body, and the body pieces start talking to him in a very comedic way, American Werewolf in London kind of style. And the body count starts to rise, the manslaughter count, and now he's got a bunch of people dead in weird, zany, gross makeup talking to him, including a fucking skeleton. He realizes that everything he ever needed was right in front of his face, and it was him who was holding himself back, and he needs to make his final album in a glorious, weird, crazy way. It's a fun, weird, goofy movie. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's gooey kind of in a lot of ways. And the dead talk to him, which I absolutely love. Seen that in a few movies and always loved that, like I said. But yeah. It's a fun, weird, zany movie. The comedy's absurd. It's an absurdist movie. It's not going to be for everybody. Check out the trailer if it sounds like it's something up your alley. This definitely kind of speaks to me and the weird kind of mind state of these kind of like wimpy kind of characters that just eventually snap. He's not very likable at first, but by the end of it, you dig him, you like him. And all the answers were around him the whole time, but he never put them together because he was too busy, thinking everything was against him. But I really like this movie. It's fun. It's goofy. Destroy All Neighbors. The next one here is Crazy House, and this is a comedy first, then a horror movie. Very satirical. I love satire. If you guys haven't realized this has Alicia Silverstone in it and Nick Frost. I love Nick Frost. Nick Frost is doing a lot of movies this year. I love seeing that. Big fan, of course. He's in the Cornetto trilogy by Edgar Wright. Of course, Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End. All great movies. He's also in, what was that, Paul? Is that the alien film? And every time he pops up, Nick Frost is just a gem. Loved him in his show Man Stroke Woman. Great comic genius. I think he took some time off or wasn't being in a lot of movies. So this movie is weird. Essentially, this takes place in 1990 with a backdrop of, the America versus Soviet Union kind of deal. And it's a sitcom, kind of a television program like Full House or Home Improvement. And he is the patriarch of this family called the Christians. And he's got this weird voice. He's a Ned Flanders style character. And he's wearing this sweater and he's obsessed with Jesus and very religious. And his family, he always tries to put Jesus on them and talk to them about Jesus. Alicia Silverstone is the highly stressed out, breadwinner of the family and everything like that. And everything seems to be kind of going as best as it can. Clumsy antics of him breaking the whole house. Yeah, very funny. He's wearing a helmet and he's got broom shoes and all this kind of shit like that. And then one day, these three kind of weird Russians, these Russian family comes in and they say, we need to clean your house. And he's such a pushover. They push their way in. They start to destroy the entire house. And before we realize it, we have these two families kind of pitted against each other. And we get into Nick Frost's head. It's psychologically damaged and everything like that, and he's asking Jesus to help him, but will he help him? And how long can Nick Frost hold out before he goes completely hulking crazy mad like he did at World's End? So we know where we're going here, and it's just that watching Nick Frost slowly lose possibly his mind, his religion, It's a lot of fun. I love this movie. Again, it's a completely absurdist, completely satirical, completely mean-spirited in the weirdest fucking way at times. But overall, Crazy House is vastly entertaining. Get past the first 20 minutes. I didn't hate the first 20 minutes. I was just, what the fuck are we doing? So it sticks to it a long time, but the payoff is brilliant. It's really weird and really gross. And his family becomes corrupted so bad that he actually eventually just snaps. But there's some really good stuff here. I don't want to ruin all the gags. Loved Crazy House. Highly recommended movie. Check it out. It also reminds me of the movie. It was on Netflix. It's by the director of Dead Snow and Hansel and Gretel, and the Santa Claus movie that he did too, Violent Night. So this guy did a movie called like Vacation or something like that, where like the couple, it's a Swedish Scandinavian movie where the couple, there's also Scandinavian directors for this one, Crazy House. This couple are planning to kill each other, and this whole group of criminals stops by. Very funny, kind of in that vein, but even more weird because it has the backdrop of the 90s sitcom that becomes meta at the end. Loved it. Check it out. Cool stuff. Okay, the next one here is Handling the Dead, another, I believe, Scandinavian movie here. I'll be relatively quick with this one. I believe this one is on Hulu, if I'm not mistaken. Watch so many movies, cannot remember. But, yes, 2024 movie, so Handling the Dead. And this is kind of like your slow, morose kind of zombie film in the vein of something like, what if the dead just came back to life in a weird way? But that's kind of it, and you expect like an all-out zombie outbreak, but it doesn't do that at first. It's really kind of slow. So we follow three different people that are all suffering from grief and loss and all that kind of thing here. So, of course, we have a father, a grandfather, and mother who have lost a granddaughter and daughter, or son, sorry. And then, of course, we have like, I think maybe it's a sister or maybe a lesbian relationship that has lost her lover, and we have all that kind of going on in this backdrop, and all of a sudden these people just stop dying. They start to come back. But they're not all there. They're all weird, and it's really dark and depressing at first, and then it slowly builds to this moment at the very third act where it becomes completely horror. And what I'll say is this movie is slow-paced. It doesn't do anything that we haven't seen in other movies. It's more concerned about the grief and the loss and what extent you would go to have those people back in your life. Think Pet Sematary, but not necessarily as approachable as something like Pet Sematary. It's well shot. It's well acted. But overall, I think that the movie, we also have a car accident victim, and that's kind of one of the bigger ones too. Overall, this movie's okay. It's hard to knock on it because it's well done and well acted and everything like that. But what the movie does get points for is there is one of the most disturbing scenes of all year in this movie, which involves a pet of sorts, and I was actually cringing during the entire scene. So that's done really effectively. So keep your eye on that scene if you really just want to be disturbed. Overall, Handling the Dead is a decent movie. It's not perfect. Well made. I would keep their eye on the filmmakers. I'm sure that this isn't their first rodeo because it's pretty good. Decent movie with one really disturbing moment that was very bothersome for the year. That is Handling the Dead. Okay, the next one is New Life, also from Hulu. And so this one here, this movie is well acted, and the storyline's pretty decent. There was a movie with William Hurt, and I can't think of it. I think it was a TV film where he was infected with a virus and he didn't know. If you touch the blood, you die. Or The Carrier from 1988, where this person's infected, but they know, and it spreads and stuff like that. And New Life is kind of like that. So here we go here. So it's not told in traditional order here. It kind of jumps around, and as we progress throughout the main story, we get flashes of Back to the Past story of why our lead character, one of our lead characters, is here and everything like that. But we follow two characters here. One character who is kind of running away from something and keeping down low and all these kind of things, and as it progresses, we learn why and what's happening and what's going on. And another character who is kind of a, I guess you'd say an agent of sorts that's being hired by this company to track this person down with a terminal illness, ALS, I believe it is. So they're a workaholic. That's all they have, and so they're super into this. Their time is ticking as well. So we have two characters whose life is ticking away, and so that's a great concept, a cool concept. So the problem with this movie for me is it's not the acting, it's not the special effects, it's not the horror moments. That stuff's all really great, really well done. A lot of people are saying it's undercooked, and that's exactly what we're doing here. There's like little details within the script that just make the whole thing kind of bullshit to me, which drove me crazy. So our main character here, so I'm going to talk spoilers here. if you're looking for a movie that is kind of a paranoid, a well-acted movie that involves viruses and spreading and stuff with, some good moments and a downbeat kind of style, then check this out. It turns more into a zombie thing at certain points, but if you're going to be super hypercritical of, some script weird things and stuff in a serious movie, then I would avoid it. But, so let me get into spoilers here and reason why I don't love this movie like I should. So we learn that our character is carrying a virus here that her husband died from. They're sitting in the woods and a dog approaches them. They pet the dog and then they both get the husband gets violently sick with hives and all these things like this. And she's kind of confused by that. She ends up getting taken away by these guys in hazmat suits and everything like that. So they self-contain her away. Never explain anything to her, but she has been quarantined essentially. What she does is she manages to escape and kill one of the people, so she's on the run, right? They act like the character has no idea what's wrong with her, that she was quarantined for no reason, and she thinks and one of the characters relays that she thinks she's wanted for a murder. He would never know that. He would not know this information. He's just assuming. But it feels like a bunch of parts are missing, like the whole script never came together. But there is no way, unless you portray this character as actually mentally handicapped, that they would not know that they were carrying some sort of virus disease. And she never is portrayed as a bad person or a person that ever thinks that there's nothing wrong with her. She just never ever questions that she's sick, and she keeps randomly approaching people and being around people, and of course they die. She never finds out. It's very aggravating to the point where you're asking me to either follow this character who has to be so dumb that they're unrealistic and they're not portrayed that way, or they're so ruthless in their own preservation for survival, but they're also not portrayed that way. So you're telling me that if I'm with somebody and they get super sick and they die and they come quarantine me and they're in hazmat suits and everything like that, and I kill somebody and I'm on the run, I do not think, I would obviously think I'm infected with something, or I maybe a virus would have got to me. And I know people are like, well, people are evil and they would run. No, I don't think so. Even when they're scared, I do not think that this is accurate. I think that also the way they portray her being kidnapped, the government wouldn't say anything. They would say, listen, you're sick with something, or you're it's just, that whole scene is done so poorly. They needed to rewrite that scene to how she got away from them. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. The whole movie is predicated on that, and it drove me mad while I was watching the whole movie. I was seething, and I was just like, that's not what, and it's such a serious movie, and everything else is really good, so that one moment really fucking ruined the whole movie for me. I'm sorry if I'm going on a tirade about this, but it doesn't make sense. It lacks logic in its thinking. And you needed to either portray the character as sinister or stupid. And people are like, well, they're scared. People do things. It doesn't really check out. There's no fucking way that the character would be that stupid or that sinister in the aspects that she is. They play her like she doesn't know she's infected, but hey man, if I'm ever taken by the government after watching someone basically melt that was around me, and they're in hazmat suits and quarantine me, and don't tell me anything, and I somehow get out, I'm going to know I'm infected with something, or possibly infected with something. Although the government probably at the very least would say, listen, you're infected with something and we're keeping you in quarantine. Do not touch anything. That kind of shit. It's nonsense. It's just nonsense how the script is. It's not well fleshed out. It was rushed, or something was missing, or it was cut out. The ending's dark. The special effects are great, man. This is so close to being great, but that part bothered me enough to make me fucking not even like the movie at the end of the day. So, new life. Okay, the next one here is Mads from 2024. This is a French film. This is, they have the gimmick of it's all in one take. It's on Shudder. So the one take stuff can be really great. Movies that are made to look like they're one take. We have the famous Hitchcock movie. And then there's other movies too as well. Some people say Slashers is one take. I don't remember it being in one take, but it's definitely a point of view kind of deal. And I think it is meant to look like that. My friend Moots is mentioning that. And I've seen Slashers 100 times, never noticed it's all kind of deal in one take. We have very famous oneers, Old Boy and things like that. A lot of people do the approach of one take. It's not super prevalent, to be honest, but it is occasionally done. So Mads, that's kind of the whole thing here. So what we have here is this kind of young guy. It's his birthday. He's doing a lot of drugs. He ends up driving and pulling over. Something happens. He runs into what we think is a test subject of sorts, because we have a recorder and she's all messed up and dressed crazy. She pukes all over him. So this character is obviously infected with something. She's going to run into all these other characters. there's a very manic energy about it that's really good. The acting's really well done, and the one-shots are impressive. I'm sure they hide some cuts in here. There's a lot of, cars following cars and people getting followed and then the car driving by. All that stuff is very impressive. There's a Russian film that Arrow Academy put out called like Kwaishek, my something, I cannot think of it. I covered it on here years ago. Koreshov, my car, something like that. I can't think of the actual Russian name. That is a fantastic one-take movie that's brilliant, and they do it on purpose just to kind of just show off. And I think that movie is just a little bit better and more crazy. Now this one, of course, the problem with this movie is you're waiting for it, right? You're waiting for that massive outbreak, that crazy tension, that crazy giant build, and it never gets there. We kind of bounce between three characters as it progresses, and they never quite get there. The movie's less of a zombie film, less of an infection film, less of an all-out chaotic film, and more of the government chasing me, shooting me down kind of movie. There's a couple good moments. Of course, the camera work's fun. The technical shit is awesome. It's amazing. But the story is just kind of generic, kind of boring, never really gets to where it's supposed to be for me. And it's good. It's not great. Don't love it. I would say check it out yourself, but it's just a lot of like people being infected and never fully going to where I wanted it to go. That's not what the movie's about, I guess. But impressive, just not entertaining for me. Mads. The next one here is Daddy's Head, also another one on Shudder. This is a 2024 movie, so this is one of these kind of trauma horror films, right, where the horror is the trauma. We have the gray backdrop where it's drained of every ounce of color. There we go. So yeah, this movie is fairly well acted. The characters are okay, I guess. It's a very, very minimal cast in here, isolated location, and I guess that, ever since COVID, maybe it's a reflection of COVID, right? We have the minimal cast, the middle thing, everybody's isolated, can't go home. This whole movie, like, it's one of these deals where it's like, just leave the fucking house. Why is nobody leaving the fucking house? Like, are you stuck here? I don't understand. It doesn't really feel like they are, but that's also a great way to save money and a great way to keep like claustrophobia. But like I said, we're in the trauma phase. I wish trauma, but trauma phase of a lot of horror films. Ever since they're always there. We know the 70s, but we've been oversaturated with a lot of these, and there's some fucking fantastic ones like The Babadook, Hereditary, Midsommar. There's tons and tons of great ones. For me, I'm getting to that breaking point where I've just, not that I don't like some of these, and there's not like any ones can't be great, but I'm so tired of the same movies, right? We have, this person's dead, yada, yada, yada. But it's too much. And this one, to me, has a great 10, 15-minute concept. It's scary as shit. Love the element of the Daddy's Head actual thing in the movie. But it's stuff like the other stuff, the script, it's all generic besides that. Of course, we have the trauma, the lost dad and whatnot, and the dog. Of course, the dog. Oh yeah, we're gonna kill this dog. At 35 minutes into the movie or whatever. It's just very generic. It would be a great short. It shouldn't be an hour and 93. It shouldn't be an hour and 33 minutes. It just wears out its welcome. It's not a good film to look at. It's supposed to have that dark gloominess. The kid is an artist. His art is very much like the Tim Burton kind of satirical goth thing from like the German expressionism kind of style thing, which is cool. But essentially what we have here is a father as, a son has already lost. It's a newlywed couple. The father has a son from a previous marriage. The mom is dead. He's an architect. They live in a strange, weird house where there's a garden. He ends up dying. The son is very traumatized from the incident. The new wife is traumatized, and they don't have a good relationship. But the father's been buried in the garden, and pretty quick there starts to be weird shit around the house, and it takes its time to get where it's going, but we learn that there is some sort of creature that can somehow kind of mimic things, kind of similar to the Thing, possibly, that can assimilate and mimic things. And that's a really cool aspect to the movie. That's a great aspect. There's some visually terrifying stuff in here, but I don't think it's worth the runtime to get there, including things in a vent, things in the middle of the woods staring at you with a face. Think Guyver, right? When Mark Hamill's got the Zonoid face thing, but it's not as well done as that. Honestly, if that thing was in there, I would fucking scare the shit out of me. But overall, it's decent. I don't love it. I think it's not, anything special. Besides, that concept is great, but what's surrounding the concept is generic, and I'm tired of seeing that. And it doesn't mean that it's bad. This movie might hit really well for somebody that, a younger person that hasn't experienced a lot of loss in their life, or maybe somebody has just lost a loved one and can really relate to this. Maybe this movie was very personal to that person. I can understand that. But at this point in my life, I've seen it, I've been through it, and I'm tired of watching it in movies. I've seen it a million times. Same old, same old. Not that every genre has to reinvent the wheel when it does it, right? You know, because I'll watch a zombie movie that's a ripoff or a slasher movie. Those are fun. They're cheap. Sometimes they're stupid, but you expect cheap fun. You want something coming at you heavy, but sometimes when it's heavy and it's put on something that is like just flimsy or something like that, you know what I mean? It's a heavy concept, and it's got a great monster idea in it, but it's just surrounded by generic stuff to me, and I just couldn't get into it. Unfortunately, didn't love Daddy's Head. Some people will dig it. I would watch the next film that they do. You know, I mean, it's not like it's a piece of crap. Like it's not like it's just a script I don't love. Everything else pretty decent, I guess. You know. Okay, the next one up is Bramayugam, I think is how you pronounce it. This is an Indian film. If you guys know anything about Indian films or horror films or something, they're incredibly long. I think one that came out a couple years ago with Thumbad, I believe that was an Indian film as well, and I absolutely love that movie. So I was like, okay, we're going to check out Bramayugam. I think that's how you say it. I'm probably mispronouncing it. This movie is over 2 hours long. First and foremost, it's black and white. It's shot gorgeous. We have a couple of guys in the jungle. They're escaping. This is a period piece as well. They're escaping something, some crazy thing, and they're out there for survival. And one of the guys sees a beautiful woman, and he is kind of attacked. Kind of I don't remember what they call these kind of spirits in folklore, but he is bitten in kind of a vampire style thing. Not all of them are evil, but this one is clearly evil. He ends up finding this kind of this castle, this fortress, not a castle, but kind of like a mansion in the middle of the jungle, and he meets this guy who is the cook, and he's like, you know, why are you stealing these things? And he meets the guy running the place, and this guy is very kind of, I don't know how to say it, just very clearly fucking evil, but he's just a great performance, got a great allure about him, and he says, well, you can stay, and he bets him, this guy is a singer, he does performances, and he's got a beautiful voice, and he says, well, I need one of those, you know, and you could stay for as long as I want you to stay. And he basically plays a game with him to kind of win over his soul in a weird way. And as the movie progresses, we learn a little bit of backstory about him, about who this guy is, and about who, you know, what situation they're in. And it's this elaborate kind of breakdown of everything involving, you know, some folklore and mythology, and after that we kind of learn that this character is going to try to escape to the best of his ability. And I don't want to spoil anything besides that. First and foremost, it's really well acted, it's really well shot, the composition stuff is fantastic, the location is beautiful, the mansion stuff is beautiful, the backstory is interesting enough and cool. Like I said, the acting's great, but it's too long. And there is a huge chunk of the movie where there is some downtime, and I know it's not going to be for everybody. Overall, I thought Bramayugam was great, but not my favorite kind of movie ever. I think the film Thumbad is a stronger film. I think it's shorter. I think the mythology is more interesting. I think there's more thrilling things here. But overall, I think this is a good film. I think that a lot of people absolutely love it. If you're looking at technical abilities, this is a fantastic movie. I would recommend it. I still think it's probably one of the better films of the year, just kind of objectively. I enjoyed it. I don't absolutely love it. I don't think it'll be anywhere near my top 10, but I think a lot of people will really kind of appreciate this movie, and I think it's great to watch world cinema. It's not really a musical, which a lot of the Indian films definitely have the musical elements, where they kind of mix all these genres in there, where you have like horror and comedy and just like romance. It doesn't really have any of that. It's more directly kind of a horror drama, kind of a mystery, kind of folklore thing, and I think that's a little bit different. Would recommend this when I check it out. It is a streaming on a streaming site I linked below, kind of the only place where it's really at. I think it's free with ads and everything like that, which is a long movie, so get prepared to you know, sit on your ass for a long time, but good stuff. All right, guys, let's hop into those 1982 movies.
I know I'm human. And if you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, who love and will survive. I've been waiting for someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You call me a bitch!
What's in the basket?
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to. Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
All right, next one up from 1982 is Exposed to Danger, Breakout from Oppression. And what we have here is a movie that was made in 1982, Taiwan film, and then it was recut in 86. I watched the original Taiwan version. The one in 86, what was re-released, is dubbed in English. So, yeah, it's also shorter by like 6 or 7 minutes. So, this movie has some good concepts, some good ideas, but overall it's kind of just a little too boring for what it is. Not boring, the pacing's a little off. It never goes completely where it is. So, in the beginning, we have this woman who, was accused of a murder she didn't do. She served a lot of time in prison. She ends up getting out and going to this small little kind of town and has a job lined up for her. One of her bosses or superiors, not really, kind of on her level. She's an editor and he's kind of like a journalist kind of deal. She ends up kind of starting a relationship with them. At the same time, there's a really young girl that works there. She's like 17, 18, maybe 18. And this girl also has an infatuation with this young man. She also takes care of her, her mother, who's an invalid, this young girl, and she can't speak. And as we progress, we learn that this young girl is going to make this woman who just got released from prison's life a living hell, because no one really knows she released from prison, so she's struggling really hard here, and it's got to kind of figure her way out. But what happens is this young girl is kind of doing these crazy things to make her life a living hell and pit them against their, setting up scenarios where it looks like she hurt these kids. And as it progresses, we learn that all this is going to tie back to what happened originally, why she went to prison and everything. We have this big kind of reveal. What I really liked about this movie is the acting's pretty solid. The characters are pretty decent. Again, we have a love triangle, but the portrayal, the action of the kind of 18-year-old crazy girl is really well done. She's that kind of dangerous character, like the babysitter or something along those lines. That's right. Or the crush, where they're going to kind of manipulate the situation to make you look really bad. They do it really well in Bloody Birthday too, the young kids, but she's not quite as young as that. But yeah, I thought this was fairly decent. There's not too many murders in it. It doesn't really pick up until the third act, but overall decent movie, I would say. Troy Howarth helped me out here because I recorded this. I did not not know, like, for some reason my mom went completely blank, and Taiwan and Hong Kong movies are very infamous, especially Taiwan movies, for ripping, like, soundtracks from other movies. Like, sometimes you'll hear, like, Death Wish 2, like, singers in there, or Poltergeist music. This time, it was Pino Donaggio's score for The Howling, the transformation kind of dream sequence thing, so that was cool. I was like, what is that, man? And they use it a bunch in here. Overall, this movie's decent, kind of your crazy kind of killer deal. Exposed to Danger, aka Breakout from Oppression. There is some animal cruelty in here. I don't know if it's real because the picture quality looked like shit. It probably is real, but hey, that's the way it is. Unfortunately, not pleasant. The next one from 1982 is Sea Devils by Juan Piquer Simon, who would direct Pieces this year as well, and last year he directed Mysterious Island of Monsters, or Monster Island, or something along those lines. Watch that. Sea Devils is much in the vein of that film. This actually has the guy from Mysterious Monster Island, and maybe it's just Mysterious Island, but he also is in Pieces. He's in this as the lead guy here. Sea Devils is more of an adventure kind of film, action. It doesn't really have a horror aspect to it, but what we have here is a group of kids are found by these other kind of sailors and the pirates. They were attacked by pirates. They end up on this island, and the pirates are after them. This is overall not a very great film. It's not very memorable, but what happens is we have this kind of like weird swashbuckling somewhat movie about trying to find lost gold. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really have that much to say about it. It's very much in the vein of the Mysterious Island movie, Monster Island movie, without the monsters, without the kind of cast in here. There's, of course, Aldo Sambral pops up in here as one of the sailors, and there's a couple familiar faces that you'll recognize from Spanish and Italian genre cinema. Overall, this movie is a little lackluster. There's a funny scene where all the kids are introduced, and they're all from different countries. I'm from, Portugal, and I'm from Spain, I'm from Italy, and I'm from Germany. And there's a lot of over-the-top dubbing here. There's a dub version on YouTube. There's also an original version in Spanish, which I don't think even has subtitles. But, of course, you got that quirky character who's clearly like an over-the-top, clumsy homosexual. He's like, oh, yes, it is one of those movies. This might be fine. This is definitely something that you'd see on, Sunday afternoon, or you come home early from school and it's on a TV and you're like, what the fuck is this? Just very, cheap kind of adventure stuff. I'm sure it's a Jules Verne story, if I'm not mistaken. I doubt it's very accurate to that, but he did a couple of those movies. It's so weird. His career is a very bizarre career in the 80s. Juan Piquer Simon, of course he had Mystery Island. And then he had this, Sea Devils, and then Pieces, and then the next year, 83, he had the E.T. kind of weird Italian E.T. movie, which is more of a horror film, and then he'd go on and he'd end up making Slugs and Endless Descent. A strange director. He also did, Cthulhu Mansion, he did that one as well. Just a bizarre career. This is a bizarre movie, too. Not exactly great. A couple familiar character actors. I don't have much to say about it, so yeah, if you ever wanted to see it, it's on YouTube. Check it out. More of adventure, not really horror. Had to watch it because I want to see my man Juan Piquer Simon's movies, so yeah. Okay, the next one is a Patreon pick, and I was told pick a shark movie of my choice, so like a smart guy, I picked a 2024 shark movie. That's right. Directed by Xavier, what the hell is his name? Xavier Zans? And I'm getting old, man. But this director did Frontiers, and he also did The Divide, so, a very happy, lucky-go, cheery guy. French extreme director, of course, and his movies are downbeat as shit. So I really didn't know what to think about Under Paris. I was looking at the these Letterboxd reviews and the ratings. I was like, man, it's pretty low. I don't know. It's a big, giant shark movie on Netflix. I'm going to check it out. And right in the first 10-15 minutes, I was like, the CGI is fucking excellent. I can't tell. We have a group of environmentalists that study sharks and marine biology, marine life, and all that kind of stuff. And there's a plastic kind of like dump where all this plastic is thrown together and the environment, and they're diving in there, and they have all these sharks like tagged and everything like that, and they realize that this one shark has grown like twice the size it should be. It's like, it was only 6 meters, now it's like 18 meters. It's enormous. And what happens is her whole team gets slaughtered by these sharks except her and her friend or her colleague, and she's obviously very scarred from it. But this other group of people, one of which is her old colleague, realize that shark years later, or a couple months later, is being tracked, and it's ended up going into Paris and all these canals and everything like that. And they're like, we got to find this shark. So they end up going to the marine police, and they kind of team up, and they're trying to figure out the shark. While at the same time, there's this group of massive environmentalists that almost become like a terrorist act, where they kind of try to hide and save the shark, and no matter at what cost. But we realize that this shark is a mutant. He's a mutant. land. And the shark has completely changed, and they breed and they multiply in way different ways, and they grow giant, and they've kind of learned to go into fresh water. So we definitely have an eco horror film going on here, and everything like that. The carnage is fucking insane. The kill count is insane. And at first, a couple people die. You're like, oh, we're doing that. But as the movie picks up, we have this great scene within like the kind of catacombs of Paris and everything. Under Paris, of course, where a bunch of characters get ripped to pieces by the sharks. They start to multiply. And by the end of this movie, this turns into like a giant disaster film. I thought Under Paris was pretty fucking cool. I was surprised at how well a lot of the stuff was done. Yeah, it's dumb, but it's serious, and it takes itself serious, and it delivers on the goods. It delivers on the downbeat craziness that an eco horror movie usually has, but it also is like a big dumb shark movie at the same time being dark, and somehow they play the tones right. Because a lot of times if you're deadly serious and you're kind of silly at the same time, it never works. But this movie plays it straight, and they never did anything too stupid to me where I was like, that's so dumb, I'm out. You know what I mean? I thought Under Paris was pretty good. I was impressed with it. I didn't expect it to be great. I didn't really have expectations for it because the ratings were so low, and I just like, do people not know how to have a good time? Like, and I'm always the first to complain when a serious movie has like these tonal issues, but I don't think it had the tonal issues. I think it's playing its way. It's a killer shark movie, and I think it plays its hand right. A lot of characters. We have the whole gimmick, right, where like the mayor's like, we can't shut down anything because we have this giant bike triathlon through. So obviously inspired by Jaws, but what killer shark movie wouldn't be? Under Paris, entertaining, chaotic, big, budgeted fun. Check it out, Under Paris. I liked it a lot. Alright guys, questions, comments, and concerns. Sorry about the coughing, if you guys heard that. I cannot control it, unfortunately. Can't tell somebody, stop being sick. But it was annoying and loud, and it fucked up my concentration. If you guys heard it. Angelo 150, thank you for the addiction. James, I'm going to check it out. Let me know what you think, man. It's an acquired taste, but it's good if you got that taste. Ken Coakley, I watched Men of War again yesterday, again years after seeing it for the first time back in the 80s. I think it was 94, but I get what you mean. Most of the actors had done other films that I liked. The first time I noticed Perry Lang was in the film that appeared in Spielberg's 1941, in which he played opposite Bobby Dakota. Sicchio, the two actors who would soon reunite for The Big Red One. The middle-aged guy who hired Dolph Lundgren was played by Kevin Teague, who was a TV star in the 70s, starred on a show called Emergency in 1989, appeared in Roadhouse. Yeah, he's the owner of the bar. He's great in Roadhouse. Tiny Lister was in a low-budget film just before he passed away. The film was called Sunday Rapture. He played himself going to the gym to try to convince a bunch of teenagers to stop playing basketball and go to church. They just told him to get lost, and he said, have you guys heard of Tupac Shakur? We did a movie together called Gang Related. I told him about a real gangster named Jesus Christ. Even though I'm a Christian, I thought that was hilarious. Almost as funny as his No Holds Barred co-star Hulk Hogan tried to admit being. Almost as funny, I think, as his No Holds Barred co-star Hulk Hogan tried to admit being a Christian at Howard Stern show by saying, I believe that the brother died on the cross for our sins. I cried from laughing so hard. I thought he was going to say that Judas was a jabroni. I also finally watched Smile and Smile 2, even though both films were very surreal, but I liked both films. I like Smile 2 a little bit more. For one thing, the dead cat sequence really bothered me. When the pop singer signed autographs for the obsessed fan with acne, I thought of the Horcons, but they went back to the comedy. Well, one too many times. When the signed yellow t-shirt guy was on the floor, one would think it was a smiling girl, but the underwear with the skid mark gave away that it was the acne-ridden fanboy. I was also looking for Jack Nicholson's son. He played Paul Hudson, the dead actor boyfriend of Lady Gaga. The star of the film. Yeah. I watched the Devil's Candy last week. I couldn't even recognize Ethan Embry. His hair grew out. He had a nice beard. He looked like he spent a lot of time in the gym. The movie looked like it could have been Jim Van Vever film. Yeah, he's definitely wearing a hairpiece. Ethan Embry's not had hair forever. But yeah, he's great in that movie. He's very good. One last thing, the world of exploitation films lost another star. Steve Almano, star of such exploitation films as The Wild Rebels and The Hook Generation. Hook Generation, good movie. Passed away at the age of 84. He'll be missed, but not forgotten. Bumpus Hounds, what is that, Ruined Dinner? Bump Ush Hounds Ruined Dinner. Really enjoying the reviews of the new horror flicks. Besides magazines, the Videoscope and Rue Morgue, there aren't many good resources for which new ones are worth watching. I've added several titles to my watch list because of your recommendations. Who knew there was a Street Trash remake? Keep up the good work. I know, right? It's kind of like a sequel remake thing, whatever it is, but not for me. Maybe you'll enjoy it. Let me know. Nick Moore from Belgium. The good year of our Lord 2024 has some decent to very good horror flicks. I hope this bodes well for the coming year. Then again, even if 2025 proves to be crappier for us horror aficionados, shows there are many, many classics or forgotten films getting a release on disc, right? Speaking of home media, THX for suggesting Mute Witness, a truly superb slice of 90s horror. These early meta films were really outstanding, and who doesn't love Sir Alec Guinness twirling his mustache? Questions. Last week we discussed Canada doubling for the US of A, but has America ever doubled for Canada or Europe in any movie? I'm sure it has, to be honest, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. You know, I like to read the question spontaneously. I'm sure it's, I know that, like, in New Zealand, the movie New Zealand, what was that, Strange Behavior, is filmed in New Zealand or Australia, and it doubles. They try to do America, but that's obviously not it. So, have you ever been to Europe, or has Eli Roth Hostel dissuaded you? No, I've never been to Europe. I haven't traveled the world that much, and it was not because Eli Roth's Hostel. What's the worst meta horror film you've ever seen? The worst meta horror film I've ever seen. Honestly, it's probably some, like, dirt cheap budget movie that cost absolutely fucking nothing. I hope you've enjoyed Black Friday and scored some major deals. Take care. Movie Junkie Reviews 84. I haven't watched it, but Block Island was one of my favorite vacations. We were in a room with no AC. We went to an old movie theater to see Snake Eyes and listen to mixtapes. And there was an old bookstore. We had a great time. Beautiful place. This review reminded me of it. Thank you. JK and see, sometimes when your words, I never know. JK and Teat, or Jay Ken Teat. Loved What You Wish For. Nick is so underrated. Great actor, great movie. Way Up Dude gives me a thumbs up and everything like that. So yeah, let's get into this quick update. Alright, first and foremost is Jaws 3 on 4K. Good price on it. You know, I heard about the AI stuff in here and it's supposed to look hilarious, but I'm willing to give it a shot anyways. I'm not that mad about Jaws 3 having that. Jaws 3 was never my favorite, but hey. And then we have this box set here, the Tai Lung and David Chiang collection. This is 12 movies from Scream Factory, exclusive. Good price on Black Friday. So what we have here is Savage 5, Seven Man Army, All Men Are Brothers, The Blood Brothers, The Duel, The Angry Guest, The Deadly Duo, Duel of Fist, Vengeance, The Anonymous Heroes, Half Sword, Will Travel, and The Heroic Ones. Man, that's awesome. Go good with the Shaw Brothers sets from Shout Factory, of course. And then we have another box set here. We have the Ozploitation Rarities Volume 2. So we have Coda, a.k.a. Symphony of Evil, if I'm not mistaken, The 13th Floor, and Desolation Angels, which is a.k.a. Fair Game, not to be confused with the other Fair Game, if I'm not mistaken. But Desolation Angels I have seen for 82. Not very good, by my opinion, but I will give it another shot. Very cool set, though. I love the kind of rare exploitation movies. We have a couple bootlegs here. We have Chime, which I could not find to rent from 2024, so I picked this up. Don't feel good about it. Definitely will buy if it gets another release, wide actual release. And then we have a super bit, of course, of, what is this? Hell in a Bottle. Let me double check the name here. Hell in a Bottle, 1986. Always remember that cover art. Never actually seen it. So graphic and crazy and weird, but these are upscaled, so I'm curious to check these out. I also got Oregon and Sweet Home, but yeah, we're back to the video. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.